Hey, what's up guys? Jesse here in the studio. So today I'm setting up just a quick demo. So a little while back I posted on Instagram a photograph of groomsmen in a hotel room. The photograph, was intentionally done very dark with just spotlights essentially on each of the groomsmen's faces and the groom as well. But it's a cool little technique that, if you get caught in an environment that has a lot of distractions or is not very nice or appealing, it's not going to help the photo. You can pull this little trick off with the right tools, just really, again, just underexposing the entire scene, and then with the help of an assistant, going around from each individual, maintaining, a consistent distance and angle of light. That's my recommendation, but going one at a time through each of the subjects in the frame. Of course, it's going to involve multiple frames. You're going to have to come back in Photoshop and do a little bit of work in post-production. But it's really not that difficult if you kind of lay the groundwork and take your time and do it in the proper way. You might think you need a tripod to pull this off. Obviously, it would be helpful to have one. I just, I don't see that as having like a lot of time on a wedding day to really pull that out and set that up. So if you, are very careful with how you're holding the camera and not really, making an effort not to move too much, I think you can pull this off just fine. Even a little bit of movement's okay. It'll be correctable later. Another recommendation is before you start, it's a good idea to always take like a base frame, just with no light, no assistance present, just to have that in your back pocket for later when you have to make little minor adjustments. So as you're going to see in the video, Maria is going to go through and she's going to light each of the three gentlemen who are helping me out. That's Ryan, Matteo, and Francis. They're being my subjects for the day. And she's going to light them each one at a time. Now I'm going to make sure, taking advantage of the viewfinder, being able to preview the photograph immediately as I take it, without really having to move. I'm going to be looking specifically at the position of the light, and if she needs to retake it, I'll give her instructions on how to go about making the slight adjustments up, down, because we're using a MagMod attachment called the MagSnoot. It's not at its tightest. We have it, I think, 1 or 2 clicks down from the tightest. We do want a very focused, concentrated beam, so we use that utility on top of a Evolve 200, and that gives us a lot of control, just enough to kind of focus mostly on the faces and nothing really else. We don't want a lot of spill. We don't want anything else in the scene getting affected by the light. So that's the tool we're going to use. We're going to go through, in this case, it's only 3 guys, so it is usually on a wedding day. You may have a larger group to work with. It's totally doable. Don't worry about your assistant being in the frame. Just worry about keeping them consistently in the right position through each of the guys. Then you're going to go through later and you're going to, using masking, you're going to take the parts that don't need to be in the picture out, and you'll be left with a final image that should look like it was lit. In a way that wouldn't be possible otherwise, but it creates a really unique effect, a unique look, something different, something to have in your back pocket. Should you find yourself in a scenario that wasn't quite ideal. But yeah, check it out, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know afterwards, and I'll be happy to help out in any way I can. All right. So Maria, you'll come here. For the purpose of.
He was going to dress up.
I
would have dressed up today.
For the purpose of the photo.
Well, because we're going to take photos of him.
Yeah.
Jesse's going to take photos of him.
Just because if there are reflections, this is not a tutorial on getting rid of those. So you guys will always look towards me. Like, I mean, you could turn in a little, I guess if he's in the middle. Just like that. Comfortable. Yeah. Ideally, we're just spotlighting your faces. Everything else should be pretty dark. But you're going to try and keep the same distance and angle for each of them. Go through. Well, all because you're going to be shooting his arm. Okay. All right. So hopefully, Maria, we get this on the first shot. I'm going to go down low because I really want to get rid of any kind of cars that are behind these guys. And again, I'm going 35 on the 16 to 35, and I'm going to trust the Sony focusing, even though these guys are really backlit. It's really hard. I see mostly shadows, but Ryan's going to be up first. We'll take a frame, and that actually looks pretty good. Maria, I'm going to have you take a little half step in towards Ryan and kind of bring your arm over to the left of just an inch or two. Yep. Stay right there. All right, perfect. So now we're going to move over to Matteo. So I'm trying not to move too much. Maria, you can be in the frame, so don't feel like, yeah. And I'm using the bottom of the table, since the table is straight, I'm using that bottom of the table to line up the bottom of my camera frame with, so I can maintain a fairly close composition. Excellent. So Maria, we're a little low. We're hitting just underneath his collar. So just angle up just a tiny bit. All right, perfect. Take a little half step in towards the guys. Right there. And again, we're just going to adjust up a little bit and to the right. All right, perfect. I like that. So now we're going to move over to Francis. Again, so this is a tricky part, Maria, because we do want to maintain the direction of the light in this case. Hang right there. We're going to go up a tiny bit and to the left. A little bit more. Hang right there. Okay, good. And I'm going to try one more time, but Maria, can you do it from the opposite side? So the same angle you're coming with Matteo and Ryan? Yep. Right there. Perfect. Up and to the left a little. Just bring your right hand behind your back. Yep. Up just a tiny, tiny bit. All right, cool. I'm going to work with that. Now, Maria, you could step out for me. And this is just going to be a blank frame shot that I'm going to use for compositing later, because I have to get rid of any reflections.
All right, guys, so we're going to walk through the process quick of compositing the images that we took together. So looking here, I've already gone through the selection process. We didn't take too many photographs, but I've narrowed down the 3 images that I'd like to use for each of the subjects, as well as a plate image. And you'll notice, again, there's some variation from image to image. Did my best to keep it as still as possible, the camera that is, without moving too much. We were not using a tripod, but you'll notice that for each of these, yeah, there is definitely some variation that I'm going to have to compensate for in order to make the final image come together. So these are the 3 images here. You see that on Matteo's portrait, there's a little bit of spill that we'll have to correct there as well. And on Ryan's, we had a reflection in the glass there. Of course, the 4th image I'm going to include to help kind of alleviate some of those areas was the sort of the final image I took without any lighting added. So I'm using Photo Mechanic here. Who's maybe may or not be familiar with that application, but it's what we use for culling and rating, organizing, all that good stuff. And from here, we're going to open up our images into, well, we're going to choose Photoshop, but it's going to do Adobe Camera Raw to start. And it's actually here that I would go ahead and do sort of my correction with my perspective using the transform tool. So that's this tool up here. Actually, you can see I've already kind of run through this process. What I like to do is pick, any kind of lines that I know are, designed to be straight and horizontal in the frame, which here I'm using the top of the door. And I know that that's, for the most part, going to give me a pretty decent perspective to go off of. So I'm using that as a horizontal line and a vertical, try and match it up. I mean, in theory, you could go right over the line itself, but I've gotten pretty comfortable using this tool. For the purpose of the demo, I'm not going to do any other local adjustments in Camera Raw, but you'll see that I've gone through each of these and kind of see like a little bit of a before and after. It does help straighten out the lines a little bit. And that's not going to fully correct, these images aren't going to line up perfectly with each other once we actually open it in Photoshop. So we are going to use another utility that Photoshop makes available, just the auto align image. So real quick, you'll see, so each of these adjustments has been applied. A pretty good spot to start in. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, like I said, not going to really make any other adjustments for the demo. We're just going to go ahead and open those images into Photoshop. So the tricky part here comes with just as you kind of go through this, you might get used to it. Keeping track of the order of the images when it comes to using a layer mask. Each of these is in its own kind of separate window, each image. So all I'm going to do is double click. I'll use my base layer. I'll double click the layer, just hit OK, and I think that's a necessary step in order to do auto line, but maybe I'm incorrect. But that's how I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to do a Command A and copy. I'm going to paste it in over there. Now I don't need this anymore. I can close that down. I'm going to do the same for the other two images, just so I can get everything in one document. Perfect. Let's close that out. So now we should have 4 layers here. So the kind of base layer, and then each of the 3 individual portraits. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select all. I think go into Edit, Auto Align Layers. I'm going to let Photoshop, I'm going to keep it on auto, and I'm going to let Photoshop determine how these images should overlap with one another. And you'll see it's not always 100% perfect, so we've got some issues up here in the top. Obviously, we're going to have areas where there's no image at all. That's just how sort of a consequence of doing the auto align. But the expectation is that we're going to have to make a new crop at some point. So we can do that now if we'd like. When I actually, as I was doing this image previously, I kind of saw an opportunity to make a little bit of a different crop besides your standard one, something a little bit more, I guess, cinematic. So that's what I'm going to do for the purpose of this. I'm going to make my own, and we're not going to use the elliptical marquee tool. Let's do this, and let's see. Well, actually, we'll go into crop, and let's see if we can do maybe like a 16:9 style. And again, I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to kind of try and keep Matteo centered somewhat there. Okay, let's try that. So we're going to crop there. Now we should not have to worry about any issues with losing, like having sort of white space or anything of that. So we should be able to use every piece of these layers to create a full image. So again, I don't know what the best way to start is in terms of the order. I guess there's got to be something that would make most sense. I don't know if I figured that out yet. Right now I have just in order, I guess, as I shot it. So Ryan's kind of my first layer on the very top. And then below that we have Matteo, and then below that Francis. And then at the very bottom we'll have the sort of the base layer that we need to go to in case we have to make any other corrections. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. And let's just take a look. Let's just see how. So what I notice is between these two layers, by going down to Matteo's layer, I'll be able to get rid of this unwanted area that's just to the side of Ryan's left arm. So knowing that, I'm going to add a layer to Ryan's, I'm going to add a layer mask to Ryan's layer. And then what we know we need to do is we want pretty much everything in this frame from about here onward to kind of be eliminated. And so what I'm going to try first is we're going to go in here. I'm going to say, let's take about from here over, and I'm going to go ahead and fill that with black, which is going to mask out that area. And we may have to go back and redo this. So let's give it a shot here. And as you can see, that's pretty close to what we want. Now, if I go in I am going to see that there's a little bit of a difference here from where I made that transition. Now maybe there could be something done with, say, feathering on a selection. I mean, we could try that. We could try that again. Let's set feathering to maybe just 10 pixels. I have no idea if this is going to do anything different than what we had, but again, we're going to kind of make that selection. We're going to fill it again with black. Let's see if that made any sort of difference. Because I know it's there, I can still kind of see that line, but I do actually think that that's a little bit better than before. And actually, now that I notice, so we've got this area here where Ryan's arm, if I click that layer off and on, you can see it's a subtle difference. So what I'm actually going to do is I'll go in and we'll just kind of adjust until we have a little bit better of an alignment. And then I'm going to correct. I'm going to go in and mask out this area. Or mask in, I should say. One opposite, just to fix the sign. Okay, so we do have to keep in mind I did move up a little bit on that layer just to kind of get things in order, so we may have to end up cropping at the end just a slight bit more. But you see that's the trick there. So now, in theory, I'm seeing everything on layer 2 where layer 3 is black. So the same situation more or less here where we have this spot just over Matteo's shoulder, but in layer 1, which is Francis's layer, that kind of goes away. So we're going to do a very similar exercise like we did above, but let's add another mask to layer 2. Let's do our marquee selection tool again, and then we're going to go in. We have to be careful here because we also want to be able to get rid of this area here where the light did spill. So that's going to be we'll be able to do that using Francis's layer as well. So this might take a little bit of work, a little bit more work than the previous one. Again, make sure my layer mask is selected. I'm going to be filling again with black. Actually did a pretty good job there. So again, what I'd like to do is, still with the layer mask selected, I'm going to go in and very carefully, switching, make sure I'm on black because we want to paint that out. We're going to get rid of that spill behind Matteo's arm, because really kind of the purpose behind this photo, and there's probably different ways to shoot this, was really to isolate these guys as much as possible. And then again, I'm seeing a little bit of issues with the alignment, so I'm just moving Matteo's layer over just a tiny bit to correct that. I'm definitely someone who will spend a lot of time on the tiny little details, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes I'm doing things that I feel no one's ever going to really pick up on. But hey, it sits well with me. That's how I roll. Perfect. Now, actually, you can see here we've got more or less the 3 guys already kind of in place. Now I'm trying to take a closer look. I'm seeing a little area here where we can darken that up a little bit by utilizing our base layer. And so I do have to be careful with this alignment. I want to make sure there's no strangeness with lines as I hide. Okay, so what we do is we'll create one more mask on, this is Francis's layer, and so I am going to go in with a black brush again, and we're going to kind of darken those areas once more where we did not particularly want the light to be as pronounced. there's going to be a few other adjustments I'm going to make here in terms of this sign that was on the window being a little extra bright. I'm going to basically knock out any unwanted bright areas. I think this is a reflection of a light that was inside my track lighting in the studio. So I'm actually at a pretty good spot there. Again, it may not be absolutely perfect, but I just, I'm showing you just the technique here that I use. So I'm actually going to do the Command-Shift-E. We're going to flatten everything down. And like I said, I want to go in and get rid of some of these bright areas. So I'm just using the content-aware sort of healing brush here, and I'm just going to just eliminate some of these brighter spots. This one up here, I want to get rid of that one. Notice on the windowsill, the sun was coming in strong here. So, I mean, you could choose to leave it. You could choose to take it out. I'm going to just kind of take it out. And, so you can use a ton of different tools to do what I'm doing here. But let's see how this works for us. I'm eliminating. Good. I don't know, you could do this area here. We could even try here. Here I might use the clone stamp tool for a better result. But for something quick, yeah, it's totally fine for now. Also, maybe even this little bright area here. You can argue, do you take out the sun on the floor? Does it add a feel? Let's just make it total darkness, total drama, only lighting up these guys. And I will leave that. Quite like an airplane or a bird back there. I don't know what that is. Okay, pretty good spot there. My windows could be a little cleaner in the studio, but we won't talk about that. Totally fine. Now, again, I didn't do any adjustments locally in Camera Raw, but what I would probably do just to enhance the lighting just a little bit, I might go in, do an elliptical marquee tool, make a small selection over each of their faces. We'll do a feathering. I like to get it kind of pretty tight. I just want to reposition that a little bit. So again, feather, have it set to 300 pixels. Then you can go in and do a curves layer. I kind of created one prematurely, so when you create the curves layer after your selection's made, it will already have your mask set up for you. So then I would go in there and just kind of adjust accordingly, and just going to bump up the lighting just a little bit on each of their faces. So again, I'll go over to Matteo, kind of keep it around the same size. Again, we're going to right-click feather, 300 pixels. You might want to play around a little bit with that number depending on the size of your selection. And then to Francis. There as well. Feather. And then we're going to bring the curves layer. We're going to bring the light up on him just a little bit too. Awesome. Now again, you notice we have this whole area here to the right. Few different options there. You can either crop it, or in this case I'm going to take a shot since it's a very dark area, just doing a content aware fill. Hopefully it's pretty much going to fill in just with black, or I could choose black and it probably would be the same result. Yeah, I didn't quite like how that worked out, so what we can do is we can either try it again. See if it does a better job, or we'll just kind of use our clone stamp. Alright, much better. Still have some areas here, so let's just finish that up down here at the bottom. Perfect. No one's ever going to realize what area that really was. Cool. And then from here, it's basically your freedom of, style, however you'd like to do. We have tons of actions that we could run through, and just to kind of get a final look. I mean, I put kind of some of my favorites at the top. I always use them super moderation. I love, warm tones. I love matte, like a matte feel. So I just keep my go-to actions ready. I use a lot from Greater Than Gatsby and especially the Painterly collection. So I love this Painterly film, but I always bring it down. Moderation is key. It's usually around 30. You know, play around. I always use a little bit of clarity. 45. Surrealism will just kind of add a nice kind of warm tone. Cool. And there's really no reason to go much more beyond that. The point of this image is kind of drama. If you saw the studio, you'll see it in the video. How it, you know, how busy it was, and you know, it just wasn't an appealing scene. But if you're stuck in some kind of situation like this, excuse me, and you need to isolate your subjects a little bit, it's a cool little trick that can kind of knock out the distractions in the area and kind of focus on your subject. So, nice little trick to have in the bag. I hope the video demonstration was helpful. You know, there are some things that, you know, in hindsight, when you look at, you probably want to pay more attention to. These gentlemen came and they were, you know, they were prepared to do a demonstration, but they were given no instructions on wardrobe or anything like that. We just really wanted to go through the actual process of doing it. So, you know, there's subtle things I may have changed in regards to posing and that kind of thing, but hopefully the concept is driven home. Use your own creativity to bust through and create your own version of this method here. And actually notice that, you know, through masking, I always like to create a duplicate if I'm going to make a change, but kind of this area here where it gets a little lighter, and maybe it's just kind of calling to even that out just a little bit. Anyways, you can get real picky with certain things, but that's it. That's your finished image. I hope that was helpful. If you want to throw me any questions, let me know. Otherwise, talk soon. Thanks for checking in, and stay safe out there in this madness. All right, take care.